I'm Nigerian, and our culture is all about storytelling. It's like that's how you pass on your history, is through storytelling. It truly is. Storytelling is how you become immortal. I've been a writer all my life, like since I was a little kid. I was published at age 5 for writing a story about how I wanted to be a kangaroo, no big deal.
I would write these little books, I would illustrate them, I would plagiarize Nancy Drew a lot. And
storytelling was something that I really enjoyed, but I never thought about film or TV as a career.
So I took a playwriting class, and the first day, it like a bell went off in my head, and it changed my life, and I've been writing ever since.
I was doing a play where I got asked to twerk in a slave costume, and I was like, you know what? That's my line. Like, I think I'm not going to do this shit anymore. And in kind of figuring out what I want to do with my life, I started writing this web series.
My very first show was For Your Love.
Orange is the New Black.
6 Feet Under.
Brown Girls.
The Wood.
So I got an interview between seasons 1 and season 2, and they sent me over the 10 VHS tapes of season 1. Popped them in, and just kind of like couldn't believe that I had gotten hired on this show.
I got a call one day that Genji Kohan had a new Netflix show. Netflix was like a DVD company at the time.
I never forget my first day in a writer's room. After it was over, I said to somebody, they're gonna pay us to do this?
I kind of get like a little bit weird when people say diversity and inclusion, because I feel like those are like these really mild words that people say instead of saying we live under white supremacy and patriarchy. So when you say diversity and inclusion, you're like, we should really get some more women behind the camera. And it's like, no, it's a state of emergency.
I'm on my 8th TV show, and more than likely, I'm always the only Black writer in the room.
Well, we've already got our diversity hire. That, in and of itself, super racist, because you just are going, oh, so there can only be one Black person, or one person of color.
Black writers make up 3% of the guild. 3%! But people think we're taking their jobs.
What I think is so hard for a lot of showrunners is what they tend to do is model their writers' rooms after their circle of friends. And so you would see a lot of white male showrunners filling their writers' rooms with writers who would be people they would hang out with socially, you know? And so that typically meant other white men.
If you're looking at a room and it's 12 guys named Mike who are all wearing plaid shirts and Nikes, you have fucked up. It's like, just be invested in hiring people who look different from you, because those different people will help your stories be better.
I never forget, I was in a writer's room, and I was making a really hard pitch for a character of color in this show. I was the only person of color in the room, and there was a bit of a resistance, I would say. And I got really upset, and I said, you guys have to realize when I read a book, I have to make the character Black, because that's the only way I can find myself way in it. And a lot of them started crying. They didn't realize that that's my reality that I live in.
Throughout life, you're seen as the other if you're in like predominantly like white environment. So like that's kind of like a given. It's from like kindergarten, you know?
If I had seen someone who looked like me, who wasn't a sidekick or, you know, just the butt of a joke, I think I would have felt relief. I would have realized like, hey, everything's gonna be okay.
When I was in the process of realizing I was gay, I couldn't find my story anywhere. Because I was writing on Orange is the New Black, I had this platform that most people didn't have. And I wanted the women who came after me to be able to find my story.
stories are such an important part of our culture. If you don't see yourself in a story, are you even real?
As a writer, I definitely feel like I have the responsibility to tell the stories of people who don't feel themselves represented on screen. I want them to watch my films and walk out feeling empowered and motivated and validated.
By making, you know, life more visible, by making lived experiences other than your own more visible to, you know, wide populations, you know, you're essentially dismantling injustice and making people care in a way that they don't otherwise.
If you have something that can like present a new opinion or present a new perspective, and you can write it well enough, you can change like an entire outlook of a whole community.
I think is super important in terms of just creating empathy in the world.
I think a lot of people like to have conversations around inclusion, multiculturalism, diversity. the conversations are easy. You need to have people who can make the decisions not look like the same white guy can't be the same guy.
The more EPs and people in power of color, LGBTQ, they will then, I think, help populate the writing community.
Hire people who you think are talented. Hiring people who have, quote unquote, never done it before, just who you think have a voice or who have an eye, and giving them the shot to do it.
The show that I just ran, which is called Tales of the City, I hired an all-queer room. They were incredibly diverse. Marcus Gardley was in my writer's room. They were also multi-generational. There were a lot of identities represented in the room that now, those are 6 people, 3 of whom who had never been in a writer's room are now in the system.
Having the support system. And I've had great people around me over the years, but not like this. Nothing like what AT&T has given me in terms of mentorship. So to have what I have now, it's the most empowering moment of my career, definitely.
Mentorship is agency, because in this industry, I feel like you really need to go out and meet people who will pull you up and give you opportunities and allow you to take risks and put your work out in the world.
I think all of us feel this responsibility to keep pulling people up on the boat and say, well, if I'm on the boat, I'm going to bring people up. And we can't help it. We can't help wanting to pull people in.
My whole thing is mentorship makes you last. I can't do 12 hours on set in my 70s. So it's like, what is the way that you get to last? It's by reaching out to the next generation and helping them move up.
I just really hope that there's more people telling stories that look like us.
The industry is shifting and there's this really amazing groundswell. We have this remarkable privilege and platform, right? So that if we can shift how we do things and the stories that are being told, that will trickle down, and it will trickle down fast, I think.